it online later. So just need to make you guys all aware that it is being recorded. And first of all, we want you to make sure that you have a pen and paper or, a Word or a notepad open for something to write questions and take notes on if you want to. Just briefly, I've been working in IT for quite a long time now. I think I made it to my 11-year mark this year. And I am a senior training consultant, and I work in the digital transformation and process improvement area. And so I will also let Nikki introduce herself.
Hi, everyone. I'm Nikki Valadez. I'm in the same team in IT. I've been with the group for almost a year. And then prior to that, I was in the human resources department for almost 5 years.
Great. So Nikki and I are going to be playing off of each other. She'll probably be filling in my sentences and helping me where I'm stumbling. But we're basically partnering today to deliver to you guys the by request workflow designer training. So the workflow designer is a small portion of the overall Adobe Sign electronic signature platform that we have been using for, I think, about a year and a half now, maybe almost coming up on 2 years this summer. And we sort of asked in our last session if you guys would be interested in hearing about the workflow portion, and everybody said yes. So Nikki and I paired together, and we have designed a really helpful course for you guys to understand what the workflow portion of Adobe Sign is. And so before we start, I'll give you the lineup of content for today. We're going to explain what a workflow is and why you would even want to use a workflow, or do you need to use a workflow? We're going to explain how you get access to a workflow, because if you don't request certain access, you won't have access to the workflow. So we'll talk about how to go through that. Then I'm going to give you guys a global perspective of a workflow that's already prepared and walk you through a demonstration of a workflow. And Nikki is then going to sort of zoom into the globe and start pointing out the streets and the maps of the overall picture of it, and show you how to create a template and start to build the workflow out. So we decided to kind of give you an overall approach and view of what a workflow is, and then dive you into the details. And that's going to be all Nikki's job. She's really good at that. Then we want to provide you with some specific workflow information tied directly to CSUN and what we want you to know about our CSUN workflows that might be different than CSU SB or and any other CSU. We have some specifics we want to share with you. In our last class, we also got a lot of feedback that we loved what you demonstrated and trained us on, but we want more examples. Like, more examples, the better. So we're going to show you a couple additional workflows, just examples of what has been turned into a workflow, and then talk to you guys about accessing an area where you can play and test and do demos of workflows and not have a worry about messing up anything in your production instance. It's really important to use test accounts. And then we will close out the session with resources that you will direct you towards. And then we have a very special offering that we're going to talk about at the very end of the session to keep you sort of, to the end of the session with you. We'll leave that little tidbit for the very end. So we're going to start out with a little bit of Adobe Sign trivia to get everyone engaged and maybe thinking about Adobe Sign. And the first question is not an Adobe Sign trivia question, but we do want to know, did you attend a previous Adopting Adobe Sign training session? And we want you to enter in chat a quick yes or no. So we want to kind of get an idea of who all has participated in the other Adobe Sign training sessions.
We have a real mix.
Yeah, definitely. It's looking like
And Kelly pointed out that it can be viewed online. So the previous sessions are linked on our Adobe Sign IT page, but we'll show you where those are toward the end.
Very good. Okay. Some answers still coming in. Okay. So yeah, we have a big mix of yeses and nos, which is somewhat challenging at times to train, because in this session, we're assuming you know some of Adobe Sign. So knowing there's sort of a mix, we'll try to adjust what we're explaining for those of you that didn't previously attend our Adobe Sign training sessions. Again, the Workflow Designer is a small portion of the overall Adobe Sign training platform. So we're going to kind of focus on that. And then you can go back, like Nikki said, and review the longer courses or the other recorded training sessions. Okay, so let's get into some trivia. Even the folks that didn't attend our last session, go ahead and put your answer in. This is just for fun to get us feeling alive today. And also, if you prefer Jeopardy, you can always answer what is and then give us your answer. It doesn't matter to us. Okay, so the first question is chat window. What Adobe Sign role is required to create a workflow?
We're starting out with kind of a hard question. So it's okay if you don't know.
Yep, definitely okay. Ooh, admin, editor, admin, form filler, admin, sender. You guys are being so brave by answering. I get it, it's uncomfortable. Okay, so the answer to this question is group administrator. So in order to get the Adobe Sign workflow capability, we have to get you to fill out a group administrator access form. Now, there are three main roles. This is for those of you who didn't attend the session prior to this. There's three main roles. There is a signer role, a sender role, and then a group administrator role. And they all perform exactly what we're describing. Signer is all the students are automatically capable at CSUN of just signing a document that was sent. You all have the ability to sign a document. Faculty and staff are a little bit elevated. They have the ability to sign a document and send a document. And that's exactly what it does, is they have the capability of logging into Adobe Sign and sending. And the third one, it's a very huge term. It's funny because with a group administrator role, you don't do anything besides get access to workflow. I mean, it's kind of a big term for such a small role. So that's the answer, group administrator.
I just want to add one thing. We had I think more than one response of sender, and it kind of, I think, depends on what you were thinking of in terms of create or accessing a workflow. So you can send an agreement using a workflow if you are a sender. So if someone created a workflow and shared it with your user group or with the entire campus, then you'll be able to send using it. But for designing a new workflow, that's group administrator access.
I love it. Thanks, Nikki.
Sure.
Okay, our next question. A reusable document in Adobe Sign is called a what? Yay, you guys are getting it. What is a template? Yes, perfect. So here is something that I had to teach myself very early on to remember when I'm designing a workflow. Templates always come first. So you're taking a template and you're applying a workflow to it and telling it where to go and who to go to. You have to have the template in Adobe Sign first before you even start to design the workflow. There's been so many times where I've started to create and design my workflow and I get to the very last step and it's like, oh, I forgot to upload my template. So templates is always really where you start. Our last sessions that we covered, for those of you that weren't available to view them, we taught you all how to create a template, the ins and outs and all the details of creating a template. And today we are also going to just kind of skim how to create a template so you won't be lost whatsoever. We're going to just kind of touch on the template and then get into the details of the workflow. But you guys are right on, it's a template. And you always start with that, even with the workflow. All right, next question. True or false? All faculty and staff can send and sign documents.
Everyone was paying attention.
I gave you the answer. We promise we're not here to try to trick you. Very good. Okay, next question. To track the progress of your sent agreements, navigate to the blank tab. So good, Michelle, Lisa, Lynn, rocking it, Larry, Heather, Cindy. Yeah, you guys got it. The Manage tab is one of my favorite tabs to visit once you're logged into Adobe Sign, because that's where the story begins. That's where the story starts and ends, and where you can find out all the information about any agreement that you sent out. And so I wanted to put the question in there to also sort of entice those of you that haven't gone to the Manage tab to navigate there and read the story about, you know, what's been happening to your templates and your agreements. Great job, you guys. All right, next question. Oops. All right. Is any member from a blank group can sign or approve on behalf of the entire group? This one's kind of hard. So it's like bonus points if you get it. Administrator, I'm seeing admin. So any member from a blank group can sign or approve on behalf of the, and I keep on having to move my little windows, so that's why I'm not reading very well, of the entire group. Team management. Okay, so let's rein this in a little bit. So the answer to this one is recipient group. So for example, if Nikki and I are in a recipient group and somebody sends both her and I a document to sign, if Nikki and I are in the same recipient group, either she can sign it or I can sign it. We both have the power to sign the document. It's basically whoever gets it first. So Nikki, in her demonstration on how to create a workflow, is going to kind of go into recipient groups and parallel signing and some other fun things that you can do when it comes to workflows. All right, next question. True or false? Before uploading a document into Adobe Sign, it has to be made accessible. I see true, I see false, I see true, false. Ooh, it's so 50-50 here. Okay, I'm seeing, yeah. Okay, so I saw the pendulum swing a little bit to the true side. Gosh, I maybe should have reworded this a little bit better, because the answer I'm looking for is true, but there is a but. Knowing Nikki and knowing that she doesn't use any type of software that reads the computer or her documents for her, if I want to send her a quick document to sign, I don't necessarily have to mark it up for accessibility, because I know her abilities of signing, and it doesn't require a special software and the reading of, you know, the actual PDF. So in that instance, you know, it's sort of false, but anybody sending a document to somebody that they don't know, like meaning it's for all campus to sign, or anyone can retrieve the workflow and send out the document for signature. everything must be accessible to the campus in that fashion. So does that make sense? You can put a yes or a no in the chat. I can try to re-explain if I didn't do a good job there. Okay, thanks, Andrea. Okay, yeah, so it's like yes and no, all right? Okay, thanks, guys. And then let's go to the next one. I think it might be the last one. It's not the last one. What is the best tool for making accessible content? Any guesses? You don't even have to have attended our last session to take a guess. Word. Ah, funny, Larry. Larry said chocolate. Okay. Yeah, good. Pretty good. Okay. So the answer I'm looking for is Adobe Acrobat. Word is a great starter tool, but Word cannot perform the same accessible checks that Adobe Acrobat can. So Adobe Acrobat is the answer here. Or what is Adobe Acrobat? Last question is, who do you contact for help with accessibility? UDC, Google, IT, UDC. I love people with a sense of humor. I need that today so much. Okay, so the answer I'm looking for is Universal Design Center. And they are part of IT, but they're the specific branch of IT that are the absolute experts on accessibility. And when it comes to explaining some of our CSUN specific workflows, we'll talk about what we can do as Adobe Sign support folks, Nikki and I, versus what the Universal Design Center can do for you as a whole. But really, for the most help, it's going to be from the UDC. Nikki and I can always, help push you towards greatness in what we know for accessibility. All right. I think I'll pause there for just a minute and ask if you guys have any trivia questions for Nikki and I, or any random questions that might have come up during this. Good. Okay, so there's no stump the trainer questions, Nikki.
How long has Adobe Sign been around?
Yeah, Larry, we are going to be going on 2 years this coming summer. So
I don't think it was that new before we got it either. I think it was around for a while.
Oh, yes. If that's what you're talking about, Larry, yeah, it existed before it was called Adobe Sign. It was Echo Sign, and it was bought out by Adobe. So it's been Echo Sign for a long time. And then Adobe bought them out, and they are now adopting it as one of their tools in their Adobe product suite.
Which is why the emails come from EchoSign at echosign.com, if you ever noticed that.
Yeah, they're working on changing that so it doesn't look so spammy.
Yeah.
Yeah, fishy. Yeah. Carmen, how often does Adobe get updated? Are you talking about Adobe Sign? I'm assuming Adobe Sign. So Adobe Sign does releases quite often.
Mm-hmm.
And then Adobe
Acrobat.
Okay.
I don't know.
Yeah, it's hard saying with Acrobat. I feel like the Universal Design Center would know more about that question than me or Nikki, because they specifically work with that product quite a lot to make content accessible. As to Adobe Sign, I would say constantly. And then what they do is they'll release a certain new feature, and Nikki and I go in and we test it in our demo accounts. We see how it functions, and then we will basically enable it for the entire broader
the account.
See,
the campus account.
This is why I bring Nikki. Yeah. So, And then there's some features that we don't enable, that after looking at them, they don't function the way we'd like, or they're just not for our space at CSUN. And so we don't enable those.
Sometimes there's a conflict with our security policies on campus. So we're kind of a conservative campus with security. And sometimes that means features won't be something that can be made available for the campus.
Yeah. Thanks for the questions, you guys. I love it. Okay. So let's talk a little bit about what workflows are. So what is a workflow and why would you use a workflow? And Adobe Sign has a pretty good explanation of what a workflow is. And I'm just going to kind of read it out loud. I normally don't do this, but I just really like it. They describe their workflows as processes that guide and help automate send experiences to increase speed, reduce errors, and minimize work. And who wouldn't want that, you know, as part of their experience for using Adobe Sign? And I guess I like that because it's a really great description, but to really kind of boil it down, an Adobe Sign work form is where you take your agreement or template and you specify who it goes to and where it routes to, and off it goes. And it's really just sort of that whole idea. So why would you use a workflow? We know we want to help reduce errors, minimize work, and increase speed. So we all want that. You would need to, you would use a workflow if you need to specify the following. And I'll kind of go through these one by one. You would need a workflow if you want to specify which documents you want included in an agreement, okay? Specific signing characteristics of participants. So for example, do you want it to say VP signature or vice president signature for the signing characteristic of the participant? Nikki will, give specifics on this, and I'll sort of show this in the demo too, but you can be very specific on the labels for signers.
Also, what their recipient role is, which if you were in attendance on one of the earlier sessions, you might remember that there are things like form filler or approver. And so something like that can be configured as part of your workflow so that when you go to do this process another time, all of that's already determined and set up.
Yes. You would want to use a workflow if you need to specify form fields to be pre-filled by the sender. Specific instructions for senders. You can provide, as much information as you want in a workflow in terms of instructions and reference links and things like that you can't typically do by just sending out a document. Routing orders for complex signers with pre-filled email addresses. So what that means is, let's say I'm the last signer of every agreement that comes into IT. Like I'm the final sign off, Bergen Mazatco. A pre-filled email address means that you can pre-fill bmazatco at csun.edu as the last signer for every agreement. And this can't be done without a specific workflow in place. Routing orders for pre-made signing roles. Self-serve signing experiences that can be reused by groups and be reused by your group and the campus. So if you think that you have a signing experience that is something that just you see recycling itself monthly or daily or weekly, you can create a workflow so that you're not constantly recreating that experience. Okay, and so people sometimes get a little bit confused about, well, can't a template handle all of this? Why do we need a workflow? And basically, you need a workflow for all of these reasons that we listed, but a template would be quite fine for signing characteristics of participants. So it's essential that if you want to kind of get very specific and I don't know, make things reusable, you would want to sort of go towards the workflow portion of Adobe Sign. Do you want to add anything, Nikki?
Well, I think there are other items that really apply only to a workflow. So a template, or maybe you're going to get into that because you have can a template do all this. Maybe I should just let you continue.
No, this is no, you can.
Okay. So a template is really the form and the fields and maybe who they're assigned to in terms of the first recipient, the second recipient, and what type of field they are, depending on how you set up your template. But a workflow is where you can save who it goes to and when, and any instructions like you were saying. So if there's anything that's repeated regularly, even sometimes for just yourself, you might want to create a workflow. I had workflows when I was in HR for different things for myself, just to make it easy for the next time. So I wouldn't have to think about now, who is it that's authorized to sign this and who needs to receive it next? Just created a workflow and saved it.
We'll kind of show you, like I said, sort of the overall look and feel of what a workflow would do for you. I do see, I see a message, but I will go back to that because it is a private. If you want to make that, that message in my chat available so everybody can see the question, I have no problem answering that. Otherwise, I'll keep that one private. Okay, so we'll go ahead and move on to access. So we were talking about how do I get access to workflows? You have to be a group administrator. And what that entails is filling out an access form for us. And then just basically noting you want to be a group administrator so you can have access to workflows. And the way that you access your workflow is through the account tab. And then you will then have available the workflows button on the left-hand side.
So in the chat, Nicole has added a comment asking about her department wants to use the same form, but needs to assign it to a different instructor each time it's sent out. The department chair and DFO needs to sign every time, but the instructor changes each time it's submitted. And workflow is a perfect solution for that scenario. And I'll get into it when we build a workflow.
All right, so let me go ahead and pause here and we're going to start a demo of what a workflow sort of looks like from a high level. So I'm going to pop out to, first of all, I'll give you an idea of what I'm going to demonstrate. So let me ask the session. What do you have to start with again before you even start a workflow? What do you need before you even start a workflow? You guys, yes. Template. So my template is going to look like this. So the scenario for this is, it's fake. This is completely made up and it's just for demonstration purposes only. But this is a form that I made for this session where us as faculty and staff get to check out 4 pieces of equipment. And we can identify if it's a webcam, a laptop, a internet hotspot, or a headset. And then we have to sign it, date it. And the next thing it goes to is our supervisor who signs it, dates it. And then it goes to the head of, somebody in the IT help center, a consultant, and they sign it and date it. So the workflow is me, the submitter, then my supervisor, and then finally the help center signs off. So that's the workflow. And this form can be filled out by anyone on campus. Anybody can just go ahead and grab it from Adobe Sign and submit their fake paperwork. This is fake, in order to get access to checking out one of these pieces of equipment. So that's what I'm going to kind of walk through here for you. Now, if you haven't already figured out how to sign into Adobe Sign, I will take you to one of the many ways you can sign in, and it is through your browser. The best way that, the most notable or Things that I remember easily to get me into Adobe Sign is going to csun.edu/it/adobe-sign. And you're going to go to the big red button in the center, and it's going to ask you for your full CSUN email address. For the purposes of today's session, I'm going to sign in with our demo account. So none of this is happening live or in production. And then you can click in the password field and it will typically pick up your password as long as you've entered it at least one time. And I'll choose continue. And right here, you'll be opened up to the dashboard for Adobe Sign. We spent a lot of time in our first session exploring the whole dashboard. I'm going to dive right into the dashboard and talk about where to access a workflow. So with the scenario being this form where I, Bergen, want to go and kick off my equipment checkout, I'm going to go to the user workflow drop-down menu, okay? And I'm going to go ahead and choose the drop-down and choose the workflow name. A lot of the names you see listed here right now are not practical names because they are our demo account, but I made one that sounds, pretty legit. And it is called the Faculty and Staff Device Checkout Demo. So this is the workflow I want to access. So once I choose Start, this is where the workflow starts to, this is where you kind of see the high level workflow of this. Up here at the top, we have put in the instructions for the workflow. And in this section, you can add quite a lot of information. There's a little more drop-down menu, and if you select that, it'll give you more. And the section can be pretty long. So this is where you can instruct your users on how to fill out the workflow, or maybe something to look for in the workflow, or maybe you want to add like a link or something that links to a web page. You can actually add links in here. Although I did test them, Nikki, and it didn't let me actually click on a link and take me anywhere. But
Okay.
you can add resources here.
And also, it's a good place to tell people what they might need in order to fill out the form, because once they've put in all the recipients, it's a real pain to leave and go get the information that you need from somewhere else and come back. So it's a good place to tell them, like, have everything you need ready.
Yeah. Now, one thing I don't love about Adobe Sign is I'm at this workflow and I haven't even seen my template. And I like to kind of sometimes see what agreement I'm looking at to just sort of get an idea of where it's leading me. But with this particular workflow, you don't actually see the template yet. But the workflow designer should design in a way where you shouldn't have to quite see the template. So you see here where it says faculty or staff, and it says enter your email address. This is where you can be very specific for those workflow, for your workflow labels, and make sure that your users really understand what they're filling out. So as an example, I'm signed in as information technology. So your email address, I'm going to put in the Adobe Sign.
Actually, I think you can type myself.
Oh, you can.
It fills it in. Yeah.
Or if I do this, it'll change to myself.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's where I'm getting the email address from. So I am, for today, my name is information. We'll just pretend that, okay? And once you enter that in, it will say, oh, it's yourself. Well, great. That's exactly what I needed to do. And then it says your supervisor. So I'm going to put in Nikki as my supervisor. And then this is where workflows are also extremely powerful. It now has a hard-coded email address with a label that says IT Help Center Consultant. And this is just an email that it can go straight to, and everybody who receives this agreement, whatever this email address is, they're the final signer on the document. So the end user doesn't even have to fill this out. Now, one thing you can do here in the email dropdown, was it here?
Are you talking about a private
Sorry.
message? Yeah. That
Yeah.
one.
Add a private message. Just go right to the right here. And if you wanted the email to say anything special, this is where you can add a private message. I might actually do this to my supervisor and say, FYI, I'm getting a headset for home. Okay. And now Nikki, along with the prefabricated message was getting this particular message as well. So I'm going to choose save. And I'm just going to kind of climb down the side of the page. The document name is filled out. You as a workflow designer filler outer, if that's a word, can add to the document title, and you can just maybe put B Mazzacco, because perhaps Nikki has 50 employees that she's managing. She wants to know that this is Bergen Mazzacco's, equipment checkout form. So it's sort of helpful. You can just add those types of notes along the way.
That document name is used for the subject line, but it's also what you'll find the agreement under on the Manage tab. So that's why it's really particularly useful to include a name if you have it, or
yes,
department or whatever may make this a unique name.
And none of this, as a person filling this out, they can choose to add or not add. That's okay. We're just telling you that it's possible to add information here if you want. Me filling it out, there's already a message that's in there pre-canned, and we can leave that as is. And then the workflow designer, the person who created this, has also already attached the file that goes along with it. So let me show you what it looks like when I go ahead and I submit this. I'm going to choose send. So I am requesting the headset for my home office experience. It's processing the document, and the workflow designer has created the first person, that's me. Whoever submits it first is called a pre-filler. So it automatically puts the document right on my screen, and this is where I can fill it out. You'll notice that these yellow boxes, they don't have red asterisks by them because we didn't make this form these fields required. But when you create your templates, you guys learned in the first class, you can make things required if you want to. So I'm going to go through and say no. So we're in the demo environment, so it sort of covers up this first one. I'm sorry about that. We're just going to pretend that we know what that says. And I can't remember. I think that one's the camera. So I don't want the camera. I don't want the laptop or the hotspot. I just want the headset. Okay. So I've filled out this form, and I'm going to click to sign. And then I'm going to throw a date in there. And I'm going to click to sign. Now, I love Adobe Sign because like I said, they deliver you a lot of stories. This is a story about where this form is going to next and where it's been. So it says that you, IT, this demo account, has filled out this document, and now it's going to Nicole Valadez. And then it will go on to the on-base team, or the IT Help Center team is really where it's going to be processed. And it does give you a nice little visual of what was filled out. It's a little bit small, but it gives you something. And it, as you can see, I chose headset, and the little radio button is there, and it's been signed. And it does tell you a little bit more information on the alerts that were set up for this particular document. By default, the workflow, whoever created this workflow, they just left everything as is. The end user can change alert settings if they want. They can go ahead and select this link and change it there. And if you need to kind of know where your own document is, maybe 2 days from now, a week from now, if like Nikki hasn't seen it to actually sign it, again, you can go to manage this agreement here, Or when you log in and on a different day, you can go to the Manage tab and find the story of where and what is happening to your document. Okay. So that's an overall, just very high level view of what a workflow looks like in action. And I'm going to pass it over to Nikki to give you an idea of how to create all those little pieces and put them together to create a workflow. And maybe now is a good opportunity to just pause for a second. Do you guys have any questions so far about the global view of what this looks like? We're good? Okay. Nikki, I'm going to stop sharing and then you can share.
Okay. Okay, so now we're going to build a workflow. First, I'm going to revisit building a template briefly. So let's say that we have, this is just a sample template. I didn't even come up with a scenario, just I built a template that is kind of like most forms where you need some information and some approvals, and maybe some are signatures and some are initials. So the way this template is set up, there are all of these fields that the user has to enter. And then when they specify the AVP or director, if applicable, that person will sign here and it'll be dated here. The VP information signature will be here and the date. And then this is for IT review initials. So just similar to what Bergen was saying with having a hard-coded recipient, this will be set up the same way. That person just has to initial. And as a reminder, one of the great ways to create a template is to set it up with text tags. So all of these fields were created using the text tagging language. And there's more information on that in our template creation workshop. But this is what it basically looks like. The asterisk means it's required, and then comes the name of the field. Then this underscore ES, that is to signify that, okay, this is a text tag, and what comes next is who's going to do it. So all these fields are assigned to the pre-filler. That's the person who's starting the workflow. And then we have signer 1 is going to sign in date, signer 2, and signer 3. And even though they're initialing, they're still referred to as signer in text tagging language. And then I just want to point out for the date fields, this date at the end is telling Adobe Sign, these are dates, and I would like you to fill in the date that this person, the signer 1, actually acted upon the document. So it will automatically fill that in and they don't have to type that themselves. So that is the text tagging method. And now I'm going to go into building it in Adobe Sign. So let's say we have one with no fields on it yet, or some fields on it. We're going to go from the home page to create a reusable template and drag in the version of that one that has no fields. And I always, when I create a template, select both here. And in this case, we're going to make it available to any user in my group. If you are making a workflow that is eventually going to be used by the entire campus, we'll get into how that can be shared, but you will need to select any user in my organization for the template. So what Adobe Sign's doing is looking at the template and determining if there are fields already or if it can detect where they should be put. So when you get this button or this little bubble saying form fields were detected, click this button to place them, it will automatically place them where it thinks that they're needed. And it recognized these fields rather than these because there were lines underneath. So when you do that, it's kind of shortcutting the work that you need to do to set up your template. All you have to do from there is double click on the field and determine who it should be assigned to. So this is going to go to participant 1. And then what type of field it is, if it's anything other than text input. So in this case, it's a signature. And then whether or not it's required, automatically it checked that for this one, I think, because it's a signature. You can also set other conditions. So I'm going to update this one and call it participant 2. It's a signature field. And for this one, this is going to be participant 3. Oh, sender, participant 1, participant 2, anyone. Well, we haven't set up the recipient order yet. I'm wondering why it's not letting me select participant 3. We're going to leave it as anyone for now. And the field type, this is interesting. This one came in oddly. So I'm going to remove it and we'll show you what it looks like to make a new field. So data fields is where you would find text input, but this is an initial field. So I think that's under signatures. Yep. We'll just drag in an initial field. And yeah, it's only letting me participant 1 and participant 2. That's interesting. We're gonna just leave it as that for now. And then the dates need to be assigned to the specific user as well. So this is participant 1. It's a date, the date that they signed it. This is participant 2. And it's also a date. And this, yeah, this is just gonna have to be anyone. And we'll leave it as text. That's very odd. It didn't work that way when I tested it. So then also for these fields, we're going to drag them in from the side here, just like we did with the initials. So data fields is where you'll find any text input ones. And you can resize and name them. So this is going to be very specific and you'll see why later. I'm going to name this one name and it is assigned to the prefill. And then I'm going to bring in another one for CSIN ID. And we'll call that, we'll assign it to prefill and then call it CSIN ID with no space. And I also like to set up conditions, or not conditions, I'm sorry, validation. What is it under? Do you know where the character limit is? I always use text tagging, guys, so I forget where stuff is sometimes. String, yes. So if you want to set a character limit for CSIN ID, because there's only 9 and you don't want people entering other information, you can change it to a string of either letters, digits, or letters and digits, and then how many would be the maximum length. And then one more for the department. And we're going to call that DEPT name with no space. And then one more for description. And that's assigned to prefill. And this is multi-line data entry. And that's just so they can type and it'll wrap around to the next line. Okay, so that now that the template is created, we're going to create a workflow. So you go to group, workflows, and select the plus sign to create a new one. So you start out with the workflow information. Let's give it a name. And then you'll see here, activate for will only have your own user group. And so that is because you can only activate for your user group. If you want to activate it for the campus, you have to first make sure that your template is accessible. Then submit a ticket to our team because we are the only ones who have the capability of activating it for the whole campus. And then unfortunately, the way Adobe Sign works after that, you don't own that workflow anymore. Technically, we're the ones who activated it. So if there's a change, maybe a recipient change, or you want to use a different template, you just have to let us know in a ticket and we'll assist you with that. So here's where you would enter the information or instructions for your senders. Let's just say, let's just test. I haven't thought through the words that we would put there, but you would put specifics to your agreement. And then when you get to agreement, yes.
Back on workflow info, I just want to add on the workflow name. This is the name that displays in the drop-down menu from the dashboard. So you want to be descriptive enough, yet concise enough to fit it all in a drop-down menu. And so that's where that name will display, is in that drop-down menu.
Yes, you're right. So yes, because it is kind of small, it is best to try to keep it brief but descriptive. Then you can change any of these headings that have a pencil next to them. So let's say that this is the subject line that Bergen had adjusted when she sent one using workflow. So you could have, the name of your form dash, enter your name. If you've seen any of the workflows that are accessible to the campus, this is how I've done it in the past. So you could update this to say, add your name, or whatever you want to say for this specific situation. You can also put in a default message or say, add your own message here. You can really customize it. For this side, Bergen and I actually discussed this. We never touch it. In fact, most of those features we don't actually recommend using, especially something like completion deadline. That would mean if it's waiting on someone to sign it and it hasn't been done, it just cancels the agreement once you hit that deadline. So we don't suggest using it. You can specify carbon copy recipients and more than one if you want to. You can also edit what this looks like. You can set a minimum number and a maximum number, allowing the user to enter their own CCs, or and it would have to be editable, or you can put whatever recipient you want and make it not editable. That means they cannot change it.
One thing I could add to this page, Nikki, is up in the message section where it says please sign. This is the language that ends up in the email to the person that's filling this out. So this ends up in the email, and that's where that's located.
Mm-hmm. So whatever you may want the signers or recipients to see, definitely that's a good place to put it. But remember that the user can add a private message if they need to explain something. Here comes the part that probably all of you are interested in, which is the workflow itself, the recipient routing. So it starts with one signer, but you can add additional recipients either in a row. So it'll hit one person, then the next, or you can set up parallel branches, which allows them to sign at the same time. So an email will go out to both of these, and whoever completes it first, great. Then the next one completes it, and then it goes on to whomever the third recipient is. So I'm going to set this up with, let's call this AVP, well, AVP/director, because that's what the form said. And you can put in the email here or leave it blank, and the user will have to provide it. You can specify that this is the sender if you have fields assigned to the first recipient and not pre-fill, and you want them to complete those fields. And you can also mark it as a recipient group. The issue with recipient group in Workflow Designer is that you can only list one here. Then the user will be prompted if they'll have a place where they can enter additional email addresses if they want to. It's kind of a flaw in Workflow Designer, and hopefully they'll be fixing that so you can hard code in multiple emails, but that's how it stands currently. And then you need to be careful to select either required or editable. So in this case, I'm going to make this not required because it was AVP or director if applicable, and editable, which means the person sending it can specify who that recipient is. And then this one we're going to call VP. And we're going to make that required as well and editable so that they will provide who that is. And this last one, we're going to call it IT review. And let's make it Bergen. So for her, she's required, not editable, because we don't want them to remove her or change it to their buddy. And we close it. So that's the routing portion. And I know we're kind of running out close on time, but are there any questions about this part? Let me know if you see something in the chat, Bergen. So I don't have to. Okay. I'll keep going for now. So then you get to the reminders or notifications that you want to go out, and you can customize it. It really depends on on the business practice. Oftentimes I will remove this because I just don't think a CC really needs to know when an agreement is canceled or declined, but Bergen actually usually leaves that and checks this one. So it's a personal preference. Then you can get into the documents that are included. You can include more than one template, which is really awesome. If you had a whole bunch of templates ready, and sometimes someone needs 4 of them, and sometimes they need only 2 of them. You could make all of those optional and not required, and then the user gets to decide which one they want to use or remove the templates that aren't applicable. Now what was the name I made? Demo.
Yep.
Well, I don't see it here. I'm going to attach it. So wait, maybe it's here. Sorry, guys, give me a second. This is it. Okay. So that one is going to be required, but let's say I wanted to give an option to attach something, maybe supporting documentation. This allows the user to attach something if they want. You can also set up attachments as fields on the form itself, but this is a good way to allow them to attach it right at the beginning. And then finally, this is a really interesting section. It's called Sender Input Fields. And basically, this allows the user to fill in some of the fields on the form before they even send it, before they even get to previewing the template. It's mostly useful for scenarios where they only need to fill in maybe 1 or 2 pieces of information, like a date or an amount or something like that. Not something like a long description, not a bunch of checkboxes, that kind of thing won't work here. But in a scenario where maybe all they need to do is enter their name, that would be a good use for this. So that is why I named the fields on the template certain names, because we're going to refer to them here. So this is where the document field name comes from. This is what it's named in the document. And then this field title is what the sender is going to see. And then you can put a default value if you choose to. You can require or make them editable. And we're just going to add another. So let's call this enter your CSUN ID. Now a CSUN ID with no space, and it's required and editable. And that's it. We're at the end of creating a workflow. So you go all the way to the top and save it, and then activate it. So once we go to home, we'll be able to see that, preview that workflow. You can, if you're in the new experience and you want to send using a workflow, you go to Start from Library, then select Workflows, and that's the one we just created. So you'll have to go to the bottom to start it. And we're right at 3 o'clock. We understand if you need to go. We're running a little long because we've gotten really descriptive. There will be a recording of this that we're going to post on our website if you need to go and want to catch up on it at the hour point later. So you're welcome to go, but also welcome to stay. So is there anything else you want to say, Bergen, since we're at 3 before I continue?
Perhaps, okay, yeah, real quick. The one thing we wanted to know before we let everyone go is, would you guys all be interested in a virtual open lab where we all come into a Zoom meeting and we work through how to create a workflow? And if you need help, Nikki and I are here to do the share screen thing and sort of remote into your, not remote, but look at your screen for sharing. Okay, so I'm seeing a lot of yeses. Okay, so just so you know, we're going to continue this session. It's probably going to be maybe 10 more minutes. Mm-hmm. We will then follow up with everyone about the virtual open lab, and that will be the first of its kind that we've done so far. So thanks for responding to that, everybody. Okay, please proceed. Sorry, Nikki, go ahead.
That's okay. So this is where the user would be required to enter a recipient. If they don't enter this one, because it doesn't have that asterisk, I didn't make it required, it's just going to skip that recipient, and that field won't show up on the form at all, won't be assigned to anybody. So I'm going to put in myself. And let's say I just want to put my name. And I can add my own message if I want to or leave it. And this is the great part. This is the files section. So this is the template that we assigned to this workflow, and it is required. They can't change that because otherwise, what is the point of this agreement they're sending? There has to have the form. But let's say they want to attach some supporting documentation. They just click on that. They can browse from their computer. They could even attach like another template if they wanted to. But that's very useful. And then these are the signer info fields. So this is where you would put in anything that's kind of brief that you want on the form before they open it. So when you select send, it's going to open the form and populate that information in those fields. See how that filled in already. So that makes it a little bit easier for the recipient. But as you can see, something like a description really it isn't suitable for those signer info fields. It's really just brief pieces of text that need to be placed in it. And that's it. So from here, they would fill in any fields that are required, and then the send button appears here, and off it goes. So another thing we wanted to show was a few workflows that we have already, or actually we can just kind of discuss them. In production, there's a workflow for performance evaluations, if anyone's familiar with that one. And that requires the person filling it out to provide certain recipients, possibly attach things. So that's done in workflow. And Bergen, you had one that you wanted to mention that's live.
I think it might be better if we continue with the slides.
Okay.
And during the virtual open lab, we can talk all about some other practical
That's true.
examples.
Because I would love to hear what other people are wanting to use workflow for, so we can kind of brainstorm how it should be set up.
Yeah.
But we'll continue from here. So Bergen's going to go into the specifics on our campus and how we use Adobe Sign.
Just a couple of quick points. When you're designing a workflow here at CSUN, you do have the ability to create what is called a box connection. And essentially that means that any agreement that you send using your account, or perhaps if it's a group account, will connect to a box folder. And all of those agreements, once finished and signed, will reside in a box folder. So we have the ability to set up that for you. Keep clicking, Nikki.
It can also be done in confidential box.
There we go. Again, here at CSUN, we require that all of your content is accessible when it's shared out to campus. And here's what we can provide. If you are going to request that your workflow be shared for all groups, IT has to enable that. That basically means Nikki and I will enable that for you. What we will do as a favor, and maybe we'll charge you a couple of chocolates, we will skim your content or your agreements for accessibility. We'll give you some input for small changes that might need to be made. But if it is something that is larger than Nikki and I can provide, or will need a lot of extra accessibility attention, we will defer you to the UDC so that your content will be made accessible to the campus. And testing, we don't want you guys in production setting up workflows and sending and having fun in production. So please contact Nikki and I, or email Adobe Sign at csun.edu and say, hey, you guys mentioned test accounts. I want to get my hands on my group's test account so that I can, try making some workflows myself. And we will email you the credentials, the email address, and the password to your area's test account.
One other item here is that you can't upload whatever you create in demo to production, which is why text tagging for your templates is a really great way to do it, because you can test it as it is in demo and then load that exact same template into production, and it will behave the same way as long as your workflow is designed correctly. So if you are interested in learning text tagging, it doesn't take that long. I learned it without anybody teaching me. I just figured it out looking at the guide and testing. So we do cover that in the template creation training that we did. Okay, and so then also we want to point you to the resources that are available to you. So the first one is the Adobe Sign page that CSUN uses, or that we have created. And I want to show you a few places on that page. So you'll find that there's the frequently asked questions here, a lot of good information there. On the right-hand side, there's also guides that have already been created. And then here is the previous trainings that we've been referring to. The recordings are linked here. And then there's some specific links here for accessible PDF preparation, since it's so relevant to Adobe Sign. So some good starting points for you there. And if we go back to here, I'll take you to the UDC page to show you what they have available. They've got their training calendar here, and any trainings may be listed on the right. I really highly recommend them. They walk through from start to finish with actual documents. Is good testing or good practice. And then I want to point you to this link here for PDF accessibility. That's a great page with a lot of useful information. And there's also a link here to their PDF forms page. I use this. This is my habit now when I'm trying to make a document accessible, because it's such a good guide. It's got steps. And then really, I mean, you can check each box as you've performed that accessibility check. And it is so helpful, especially with tagging. If you're familiar with accessibility, tagging, I think, is the hardest part. And this is a very useful resource.
Okay, so with that, we are done, and we made it with, you know, we went eight minutes over, but what we're
not terrible.
Not terrible, and pretty darn good for not practicing the timing. What we're gonna do from here is Frank is gonna reach out to this entire group and request that you respond to an email if you want to join this first of its kind virtual open lab. And we'll get that rolling from there, because what we've done is we've taken your feedback and we're sort of trying to step you and the campus in the direction of where you want to go and where we think our resources are going to be very impactful for the greater good. So thank you so much, everybody, for attending, and I hope you have a great week.
Thank you, everyone. And we'll stick around if you have some questions.
Definitely.
Yes, Larry, did you have a question? Oh, okay. Okay, thank you. Yes, happy International Women's Day.
Yeah.
I do actually have a question.
Okay.
Previously, when we were working with the other program that I even can remember what it was, the DocuSign.
Yes.
We had the opportunity to do the signature, they assign the signature panel, and then it get to a point that, for example, the last signer or the second last would decide, I am the final signer, or I can move that forward. I know with the Adobe Sign now, they created that they did not have before, the designated, I don't know how we call the one that you can move. Okay, I can decide who is the next one in line to sign. But at that point, if the person decides she's the one that needs to sign, or he's the one that needs to sign, can they stop on themselves, or they have to assign someone?
Unfortunately, no. So you're talking about delegating to a signer or delegating to a form filler. That recipient role is used when maybe you don't know who's going to sign it. It really depends on what's on the form. If there's a certain dollar amount, this person handles it, or if it's a certain last name, that person handles it. And so it goes to one person to review, and then they determine who does the next step, who's appropriate. They cannot delegate to themselves, and they can't delegate to somebody else in the signing order. So someone who's already signed or will be signing later. It's just a limitation.
So that future is still not quite the same as it used to be with the other. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, and I think a lot of the pain points with Adobe Sign comes from us comparing it to DocuSign, because that's what we had first. We had this kind of feeling about certain features that we lost, but there have been improvements since we joined with Adobe Sign. So maybe that'll be something to get to.
Yes, okay, that was it. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, Michelle. Do you want to come on and talk?
Oh, hi. Yes, I saw your answer to my question.
Yes. So it sounds like you belong to the default group, the default sender group.
Yes, I think so. Because I only have 4 tabs on my Adobe Sign setting.
Yeah. So if you need to create a workflow, which area do you belong to?
What do you mean by which area, like department?
Department.
We're actually a center under a college.
Okay, so you're in academic affairs. So what you would want to do is contact Stephanie Nguyen, and she's your Adobe Sign liaison, and she's listed on our main Adobe Sign webpage. You would want to contact her and ask for group access. That group access will put you into the academic affairs group, and then you can create workflows that anyone in academic affairs can use.
Okay, sounds good. You say Stephanie Nguyen?
Yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome, Michelle.
So that's a good point. If anyone is still listening and unclear, there's a default sender group that everybody's in. And then there are some sender groups by area. And not every area has a group, and often they're all in default. But if your area does have a group, or you have you want to create a workflow and make it accessible by certain people, that's when a requesting a group be created would be useful. Okay, if there's no other questions, we'll end it now. And if everybody's interested, we'll get back together for the hands-on session, and we can cover any questions that come to you, especially as you're testing or trying things out. We'll cover them then. Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Everybody.